It is finally September, which means fall is almost upon us, also known as season. I'm one of those people that the second temperatures rise above 20 degrees, I kind of want to peace out. Like, it is too hot, I'm constantly sweaty, it's clammy, I'm overstimulated. I basically want to peel off my skin. I just cannot deal with heat. I also am someone who, the second I step outside, instantly burn because I'm as pale as a piece of paper. And on top of that, and like, this is not exaggeration, this is truly a thing, I'm allergic to the sun. So if I'm like sunbathing, I will end up with like hives everywhere. Summer and I, we do not really vibe. Autumn though, I'm that girl. When I tell you that I'm the embodiment of Red Taylor's version, I love hot cocoa, I love scarves, I love blankets, I love cozying up in bed with a book. Like, that is my jam. In honor of the autumnal season, I would like to share some of my favorite cozy reads that are perfect for this fall weather. You also, like, the vibe outside is just immaculate. It's like gloomy and rainy outside, slightly dark, not amazing for filming, but amazing for like me as a person. Let's get into some cozy books. And I hate doing this, but in case you're new to this channel and you liked what you see, I'd love it if you ended up liking and subscribing to my channel. And if you're not new here, yeah, I did cut bangs. If you like them, please leave it in the comments because I'm very much on the fence about them. And if you don't like them, just lie. Thank you. First book on my list is The Ex-Hex. This is a book very much for the girlies who were fans of Charmed growing up. We follow our main character called Vivi Jones, who's this young, talented witch living in the small town called Graves Glen, who, you know, in a fit of rage after her boyfriend breaking up with her, decides to, naturally, as you do because you're a witch, curse the guy. Now, she didn't really mean to curse him. Like, she was in her bathtub with her crystals and with her glass of wine and just kind of rhyming, but not necessarily intending to curse the guy. Well, 9 years later, Rhys, her ex, shows up in Graves Glen again because he has to restore the ley lines, like the magical ley lines of the town. He's part of this very powerful Welsh witch family, and every few years they have to recharge the magical ley lines in order to maintain balance throughout the town. Now, when he arrives into town, he starts to notice that a lot of weird stuff are happening when he's like in the neighborhood. I'm talking haunted toys, talking cats, like just overall chaos. Quickly, Vivi realizes like, oh shit, I actually hexed my ex. So Vivi and Rhys end up teaming up together to find out like how to undo this curse that she put on him, and also how to recharge the ley lines, because as long as he's there, he cannot really do anything because he's causing more harm than good. Very much a second chance romance, very cute, very cozy, also a lot of descriptions of witchy stuff, so it's perfect for the October months, or for October. October is 1 month. Perfect blend of romance and some witchcraft sprinkled in there. Next up, I wanted to recommend Red Velvet by Carla Luna. This book is part of a series called the Blackwood Cellars series, which basically follows this one particular family that is very much into the wine business. Every single book is also centered around a wedding, so Red Velvet is also centered around a wedding. This book is set in Wisconsin, and we follow our main character, April Beckett, who is a talented graphic designer working at this wine business, and she is attending her sister's wedding and very much looking forward to it because she finally has a hot, very respectable boyfriend that she can introduce to her family, because her family doesn't really respect her that very much. They don't like her job, they don't like the relationships she's been in, so she's finally like, I can finally show off a cute guy. Sadly for April, her boyfriend ditches her mere days before this wedding is about to take place. She has been boasting about this guy to her family, like she's been saying how great he is, and she just, like, she's afraid she's gonna be considered a loser again because she lied about having a fake boyfriend in the past too. Luckily, she has a very cute best friend called Brody, who she's kind of had a crush on for a very long time, and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna pose as your ex. I'm gonna pretend that I like to run marathons. I'm gonna pretend being this like established guy. I'm gonna do this for you, hopefully to, you know, not humiliate you in front of your entire family. Of course, you can already see this from a mile away. This is very much a friends to lovers trope. Brody ends up joining April on this like 6-day trip to Wisconsin because obviously it's one of those lavish weddings where you spend multiple days there. It is very much like autumn themed. They're also staying at this cabin in the woods. There's one bed. Like every single trope that you would like in a romance is in this one. Staying in this cute romantic cabin in the woods where there's just one bed and you're staying there with your lifelong crush. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? That's Red Velvet for you. Next up, I wanted to recommend the Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Laurie Gilmore. And this girl is like, you know, my last name's Gilmore. I'm gonna make the most Gilmore Girls book I could possibly think of. Like, this book is for the girlies who, when they're working from home or just lazing around the house, tend to put on these YouTube ambience videos of being in a cafe with the coffee machine in the background, cutlery, jazz music. Like, if you're one of those people, you will love this book. This book is basically like Gilmore Girls because it is set in this small town called Dream Harbor, which could basically come straight out of a Hallmark movie. In this book, we follow our main character, Jeannie, who's kind of at a crossroads in her life because she's 30 years old and recently divorced and doesn't really know what she wants in her life anymore. She decides to take up her aunt's offer to take over her coffee shop in Dream Harbor. And as she gets there, she starts to get to know the locals, starts to attract a lot of tourists because she also makes the coffee shop very fall themed. Like, it's giving Gilmore Girls. Like, she's making it cozy, she's making it cute. And she also meets this guy called Logan, who's this rugged handyman who ends up also helping her with some of the renovations in the cafe. That is basically what the book is about. You kind of learn more about this close-knit community at Dream Harbor. You'll learn more about the locals there and also about this budding romance between Logan and Jeannie. I think there's a couple of spice scenes in there, like literal pumpkin spice. Like, I think there are a couple of spicy scenes in there, but very appropriate for the autumn season. So that is the Pumpkin Spice Cafe. Next up, there's Days at the Morisaki Bookshop. As you can tell, it's quite a short book, so you'll probably get through this in like an afternoon. We follow our main character Takako, who I feel like this is a similar theme with the books that I'm discussing in this video, but like just like a lot of the other people in this video, her boyfriend ends up breaking up with her and she's also at a crossroads because she doesn't really know what to do. So she ends up accepting her uncle's offer to go and help him at this rundown bookshop called the Morisaki Bookshop. Her uncle has had this bookshop for many years in Tokyo. It's like this district where a lot of bookshops apparently are situated in Tokyo. It's very cool. I'd love to go there one day. But the bookshop is very run down. It doesn't have a lot of customers. At first, Takako is pretty indifferent towards books. Like, she stays up in her room on top of the bookshop for literal days on end. In that room too, there are like stacks of books that her uncle stored there because he's very disorganized and he just stores books all around the shop and all around the building. And Takako, in like a fit of, I guess, boredom, picks up this book and slowly but surely starts to fall in love with reading again. And this book is basically like a love letter to reading and to books. So if you're, I was gonna say if you love books, but like you wouldn't be watching this video if you didn't, but like if you want to kind of feel that love and passion for stories, I would highly recommend picking this book up. Like, it's a very familiar feeling. You slowly but surely see Takako rediscover her love for books and for literature, and she starts to make connections with the people that come to the bookshop, with the customers. On top of that too, it's very much a book about personal growth. She discovers what she likes in life, her passions, her interests, and she also reconnects with her uncle a bit more because she used to have a very close relationship with him. Very wholesome, very cute read, and there's also, I think, a second book of this as well. So if the 170 pages of this book were too little contents, you can always read the second book as well. Next up, there's A Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I'm sure this book has popped up on your BookTok or BookTube at some point, but I wanted to shout it out because it's still one of my favorite cozy books. We follow our main character, Micah Moon, who's this very talented young witch who's kind of lonely in life because in this world, if you're a witch, you're kind of destined to be an orphan. It's sort of like a curse that follows witches around. On top of that too, in this world, you cannot really have like a coven as a witch because if there are more witches in one area, there's going to be a lot of magical energy. So weird paranormal things start to happen, things start to float, people start to fly. Like, they're basically supposed to stay under the radar, so they don't really meet with other witches very often, except for like once a year. And when she gets an invitation from this estate called Nowhere House to basically tutor 3 young witches, she's like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. Even though it is kind of against like the witchy rules. Aside from the 3 young witches she's tutoring, she also meets a group of really charming and lovely people. One of them is obviously the grumpy but super attractive librarian called Jamie. You have a gardener called Lucy. There's also, I think, a cook. Like, it's a really wholesome family. I also found this book surprisingly full of depth because Micah has always had this fear of ending up alone. It's pretty logical. She is an orphan. The witch community basically is forcing her to stay on her own. Like, that is basically what she's been taught her entire life. And by opening up to this new family in Nowhere House, she's very much facing her own fears and facing her insecurities. Aside from that too, a lot of the other characters have certain issues that they're dealing with, and by Micah's relationship, they also come to terms with their own struggles. I know this book is very overhyped, but in my opinion, completely worth it. It is spooky because of the witchcraft. It is autumnal because it is like set in, look at this, like look at the cover. You're basically in a forest when you're reading this. Plus it has a very meaningful story about belonging and found family. So please read it if you haven't already. Lastly, I wanted to talk about The Bookshop on the Corner by Jenny Colgan. This is basically a book about books. So if you love books, you will love this book. That was a lot of books in one sentence. And also, like, my job as a booktuber is so easy. I just recommend books about books. Am I not like a natural at this? We follow our main character, Nina, who loves to match a book with a person. Like, she wants to be able to recommend you the perfect book. And she sadly is not able to do that anymore because the library that she used to work at has closed. She's like, you know what? I'm gonna take a leap of faith and I'm going to buy this random ass van that I've been seeing on, what is it, like Facebook Marketplace? Like, I'm gonna buy this van, renovate it into a bookshop van, and I'm gonna drive to the Scottish Highlands and visit towns that have like no local library. Like, I'm gonna basically become the bookstore of that town. Truly, I wish I could be this woman. I want to be in this book. She ends up parking somewhere at this random person's farm, and of course this person ends up being this handsome, rugged, standoffish man called Lennox, who is pretty indifferent towards her at the start, but slowly they become more than just friends. Jenny becomes part of this small town community. She gets to know the locals, learns what books they like. She gains confidence in her bookshop and in herself, and yeah, once again, cute, cozy. At the end of the day, these books don't really have a lot of plot, like they're mostly just vibes. That's why I'm not really like describing them very well, because there's not much to them. It's just mainly the autumn atmosphere. I hope you got some good book recommendations. I'm gonna wrap this video up because it's getting dark and I'm just gonna sit in the couch and read my cozy book. So I hope that's okay. Bye.